She never meant to change her sister's life, she just meant to help for one evening. But when the stranger turned around at the airport gate, eyes tired yet kind, and smiled at her, Maya realized one small favor could change everything. It had all started with a single phone call. Maya Kapoor had just returned home from her shift at the local bookstore, her bag heavy with unsold paperbacks she'd borrowed for the week. The sky outside was fading into shades of orange, and all she wanted was a quiet evening with tea and silence. But fate rarely asked for permission. Her phone buzzed. "Maya, thank God you picked up." Ray's voice was frantic, the kind of tone that meant trouble. "What happened now?" Maya sighed, half amused. Her older sister always lived at the edge of chaos. "Maya, I need a huge favor, please, don't say no." "That depends," Maya said, though she already knew she would agree. She always did. Ria worked for Horizon Designs, a luxury event company that catered to high-profile clients. Maya, on the other hand, managed the quiet life their parents had left behind after passing away years ago. Where Ria sparkled, Maya blended in. "I was supposed to pick up a client from the airport, some big guy from overseas, CEO type, but my shoot got extended. I can't leave now. If I miss this pickup, I'll lose my job. Please, Maya, just go in my place." Maya hesitated. "But Ria, what if he asks something about the company? I'll sound like an idiot." "He won't. Just hold a sign that says his name, smile, and drop him at the hotel. Easy. His name's Alexander Reed." Maya sighed. "Fine, but you owe me big time." And that's how she found herself standing at Karachi International Airport 2 hours later, holding a small cardboard sign with, "Mr. Alexander Reed," scrawled across it. She looked around nervously at the crowd, families reuniting, children laughing, business travelers rushing past in tailored suits. She smoothed her plain blue kurta and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Compared to the sleek, confident people around her, Maya felt out of place. Her reflection in the glass showed a girl who had never quite fit anywhere, neither bold enough to be noticed, nor careless enough to be invisible. Then, through the blur of movement, she saw him. He was taller than most, his presence quiet but commanding. A dark coat hung perfectly on his broad shoulders, his black hair slightly tousled from the flight. But it was his eyes that caught her, steel gray, distant, but carrying a weariness that hinted at something deeper than exhaustion. He scanned the crowd, then stopped, his gaze meeting hers. For a moment, it felt like the noise around them faded. "You must be from Horizon Designs?" he asked, voice smooth, calm, with the faint trace of an accent. Maya blinked, nerves fluttering. "Why yes, sir, I'm here to pick you up." He nodded, simple and efficient. "Thank you." He didn't smile, yet there was something disarmingly gentle in his tone. As they walked toward the car, she noticed he carried only one suitcase and a laptop bag, surprisingly modest for someone supposedly wealthy. Once in the car, silence filled the space. Maya focused on the road while he looked out the window, the glow of the city lights reflecting in his expressionless eyes. After a few minutes, he spoke, his voice low but curious. "You're quieter than I expected." She gave a small smile. "I'm not very good at small talk." "Neither am I." That made her glance at him, surprised. Most powerful men she'd met through Ray's work were all charm and chatter. But this man seemed almost peaceful. They drove in silence again until rain began to patter softly on the windshield. Maya turned on the wipers, watching the rhythmic dance of droplets. "I always liked the rain," she said, almost to herself. He turned his head slightly. "Why? It slows everything down," she said softly. "People rush less. For a moment, everyone's just human again." He studied her as though she'd said something no one had ever told him. "Human," he repeated, as if testing the word. Then a faint smile touched his lips, barely there, but real. For the first time that night, she felt the air between them shift. Not romantic, not yet, just two lonely souls recognizing something familiar. When they arrived at the Grand Regency Hotel, she stepped out quickly to help with his luggage. "You don't have to," he began, but she already had the handle in her hand. "I insist," she said. He looked at her then, not with authority, but with quiet surprise. Perhaps it had been a long time since anyone had done something for him without expecting anything back. At the entrance, he paused. "Thank you, Miss Maya," she started, then froze. "I mean, Rhea," she corrected, her heart pounding. His gray eyes lingered on her face, thoughtful. "Maya suits you better." Before she could respond, he walked inside. That night, she couldn't sleep. She replayed every detail. The warmth in his tone when he said her name, the softness in his eyes when he looked at the rain. It was foolish, she told herself. She had only met him for an hour. And yet, there was something in his loneliness that spoke to her own. The next morning, Rhea called, thrilled. "Maya, guess what? The client called the office. He requested the same driver and assistant for the rest of his stay." "That's you." Maya nearly dropped her phone. "What? But Rhea, please, just keep it up for a few more days. You're saving my job." Maya should have said no. She should have told the truth. But instead, she found herself agreeing. Okay, just a few more days. Those few days changed everything. She began seeing sides of Alexander Reed no one else probably did. The way he lingered by the window during meetings, watching the rain. The way he paused before answering questions, like every word cost him something. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it was quiet, unpracticed, as if he'd forgotten how. He started talking more, too. Not about business, but small things, music, books, places he'd been. Once, when she asked if he ever got lonely traveling so much, he said, "All the time." But people expect strength, not honesty. That simple sentence stayed with her. She understood it far too well. Over coffee one evening, he looked at her differently, less like an employee, more like someone he wanted to understand. "You listen differently than most people," he said. She laughed softly. "Maybe because I know what it feels like when no one listens back." He smiled faintly, and that moment, simple, quiet, felt heavier than anything she'd ever known. Yet beneath the warmth grew a knot of guilt. Every time he said her name, she wanted to tell him the truth. That she wasn't Rhea. That she wasn't part of some fancy design company. She was just an ordinary girl standing in for her sister, trying not to ruin anything. But the more she tried to confess, the harder it became. Because the truth would break something fragile that had only just begun to feel real. Then came the day Rhea mentioned the upcoming company dinner. "I'll finally get to meet Alexander Reed myself. Can you believe it? The CEO of Reed Holdings." The words hit Maya like ice. Reed Holdings. She hadn't known he was that Alexander Reed, the global CEO who built an empire from nothing. Everything inside her went still. She wasn't just pretending anymore. She was lying to a man who could crush her entire world without meaning to. That night, Maya sat by her window, staring at the rain. The city lights blurred like tears she refused to shed. She wanted to call him, to tell him the truth before he found out from someone else. But she couldn't. Not yet, because somewhere between her sister's favor and those quiet car rides, she'd fallen for him. Not the CEO, not the millionaire, but the man who looked at her like she was the first real person he'd seen in years. And she knew when the truth came out, that look would disappear forever. But fate had already set its course. Because love born from a mistake never stays hidden for long. And soon, Maya would learn that even a lie told with good intentions can shatter a heart that had only just begun to heal. He wasn't supposed to care about a girl who'd lied about who she was. But when Alexander Reed realized the quiet woman he'd been drawn to was a stranger, his anger was nothing compared to the emptiness that followed. The truth came out not through Maya's confession, but through cruel coincidence. It was supposed to be a normal day. A business meeting at Horizon Designs, one of the many appointments Alexander had scheduled before flying back to London. He arrived at the firm's glass office tower, expecting to see the same calm face he'd come to trust over the past week. But when he walked into the boardroom, he saw someone else, bright, confident, and laughing. "Mr. Reed, I'm Rhea Kapoor," the woman said, extending her hand. "It's an honor to finally meet you in person. I've been handling your designs remotely." Alexander froze, his handshake suspended midair. The name struck him like a blow. "Rhea Kapoor," he repeated slowly. "You've been handling my designs." Rhea blinked, confused. "Yes, Of course, I believe my assistant picked you up at the airport when I couldn't make it. His face hardened, the shock draining into quiet disbelief. Your assistant? Yes, my sister, Maya. She filled in for me last week. I hope she didn't. But she never finished the sentence, because Alexander was already standing, the chair scraping against the floor. His silence was sharper than anger. He didn't look at anyone as he left the room, his steps echoing down the polished hallway. Outside, the sun blazed mercilessly, but all he could feel was cold. Maya had lied. The one person he had allowed close, the one person who had looked at him without judgment, without calculation, had been lying the entire time. Back at the hotel, his phone buzzed. It was her. Alexander, please, I can explain. Her voice trembled through the line. Don't, he said flatly. There's nothing left to explain. But she came anyway. She found him standing in the rain outside the hotel entrance, his expression unreadable. She ran to him, soaked and breathless. Alexander, please, just listen for 1 minute. He turned slowly, his jaw tight. You had every chance to tell me the truth. Why didn't you? Tears blurred her vision. Because I was trying to help my sister. It was supposed to be one pickup, just one night. But then you looked at me like I wasn't invisible. And for once in my life, I didn't want to disappear. Her voice cracked, and something inside him faltered. He could see the honesty in her eyes, the raw fear, the regret. But beneath that was something deeper, sincerity. I trusted you, he said quietly. And that's not something I do easily. I know, she whispered. And that's what hurts the most. He looked at her for a long moment, like a man trying to find anger in a heart that no longer wanted to hate. Then he turned and walked away, leaving her in the rain, trembling as the downpour washed her tears away. For days, silence stretched between them like an ocean. Maya stopped answering Ray's calls, stopped showing up to the bookstore. Her small apartment felt emptier than ever. She kept replaying that moment at the airport, the car rides, the coffee, his quiet smiles, all built on a lie she hadn't meant to tell. Meanwhile, Alexander threw himself into work, trying to bury the feeling she'd left behind. But the harder he worked, the more she haunted him, in the rain on the glass, in every quiet space that used to comfort him. He'd been lonely for years, but he hadn't realized how much until she left. One evening, Maya decided to do the right thing, to close the chapter for good. She went to the hotel to return his watch, the one he'd forgotten in her car. She didn't plan to see him, she just wanted to leave it at the front desk. But fate wasn't done with them yet. He was there, in the lobby cafe, sitting alone, reading something on his tablet. When he looked up and saw her, his expression froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he set the tablet aside. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice low but softer than before. She placed the watch on the table. You left this. I just wanted to return it. He looked at it, then at her. His eyes no longer carried anger, just exhaustion. Sit for a moment. She hesitated, then sat across from him. The silence between them felt fragile, like glass. After a while, he asked, do you know why I noticed you that first day? She shook her head. Because you didn't look at me like a CEO. You didn't see the money or the name. You saw me. I hadn't felt that in a long time. Her throat tightened. I didn't want to fool you. I just didn't want that connection to end once I told you the truth. He studied her face, searching for lies but finding none. Maybe it wasn't all a lie, then. Something in his voice cracked open the quiet between them. They talked for hours that night, not about business or mistakes, but about life. He told her about his parents, who had died when he was young, about the loneliness of success, about how people only cared for what he could offer. Maya shared how she'd grown up always second best to Ria, loved, but overshadowed. How she'd spent years being the responsible one while her sister lived freely. By the time the cafe lights dimmed, the bitterness had melted into something else, something fragile, like forgiveness. When Alexander finally stood, he said softly, you've changed the way I see people, Maya. That's not something I'll forget. And with that, he walked away, not out of anger this time, but acceptance. Months passed. Maya went back to her quiet life, though it no longer felt quite so small. She quit the bookstore and opened a small online art business, painting scenes inspired by rain and faces she couldn't forget. She no longer waited for anyone to see her, she saw herself. Then, one afternoon, her phone rang. "Miss Kapoor," a professional voice asked. "We're from the Reed Foundation. We're commissioning a local artist for our new community center mural. Mr. Reed personally suggested your name." She froze, heart pounding. He did, yes. He spoke highly of your work. Her hands trembled as she ended the call. After all those months, he still remembered. When she arrived at the mural site weeks later, she almost didn't recognize him. He stood near the wall, in casual clothes, smiling faintly as the workers packed up for the day. He turned when he saw her, the same warmth flickering in his eyes that had once made her heart stop. "You still like the rain?" he asked. She laughed softly, her eyes shining. "Always." He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. "Then maybe this time, we don't let it wash everything away." The rain began to fall again, soft and slow, blurring the world around them. And under that gray sky, they stood together, two people who had met by mistake, lost each other through truth, and found their way back through forgiveness. Sometimes, the wrong turn leads you exactly where you're meant to be. And sometimes, what starts as a lie becomes the truth your heart has been searching for all along.